Welcome to another episode of Two Ales and Hockey Tales with Wally. And today I am so excited to have on a 44-year-old from Camrose, Alberta, Canada, a second rounder to the Dallas Stars back in '98. His hockey journey has taken him to Canada, the USA, Finland, and he is a legend in Ingolstadt, Deutschland. He is also a legend with the Prince George Cougars and captained the squad for 2 seasons. And during those 2 seasons, for fun, made and played for Team Canada in the World Juniors and was named a gosh darn assistant captain of Team Canada and found himself in the NHL the very next season with the Dallas Stars. Played some games for the Phoenix Coyotes and parts of 3 with the Vancouver Canucks. He also captained the Portland Pirates for 2 seasons before heading to Germany and found a home in Ingolstadt for 5 Jahr or 5 seasons and wore the C there as well. And in his final year, led them to the DEL championship and became a Deutsche Meister to cap off a hell of a career. Welcome on, Tyler. Bouck.
Bouck.
Boucker.
I've been called many things, so I'm good at whatever you want to call me.
Okay, I thought it was Bouck, but it's Boucker. See, and I get into how we know each other. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's good to be here.
Well, I always say my guys know each other, and well, Dicko, when I posted you were coming on, Dicko wrote you're awesome, and Kincher gave me a clap too that you were coming on.
Well, that's how I actually saw you. Was Kincher posted on his page. I followed. I wanted to see who was all on, and I knew a whack of guys. As far back as Jeff McMillan, Kyle Rank. I played with him in Portland. Awesome guy. Dixon was an awesome guy. What a beauty! And then
Oh
just
yeah,
into Germany with Honor. So you've had a lot of guests that I played with.
and I always say my type of people know each other, and you're from small town in Canada.
Yeah, Western Canada, it's about an hour outside Edmonton, smaller town, about 15, 20,000 people, kind of a double A hockey association, and played there really pretty much right up until junior.
Yeah, like Jeff McMillan is right around the corner here in Durham, Ontario. I played with him in Syracuse, and then Kyle Ranks from my hometown in Elmira, Ontario. And I just really like the small town folk.
They're good people. I don't think it matters what province you're from, but the small town people are good people.
Well, you hold each other accountable in a small town, right? It's like a community, and
Well, that's what hockey is, right?
it sure is. Hockey is. It's a small community, just like living in a small town, and it's nice when the good people all know each other. So Hani, he's from Elmira, Ontario, and he came on, and he sounds like he's from Texas.
It's funny. I listened to that last week after I kind of went through, and it was awesome. His southern drawl was amazing. He didn't quite have it that bad in Ingolstadt, but it was coming.
It's hit him hard.
Yeah, yeah. What a good guy he was. What a great player he was.
Yeah, he was a great player, and you see well, now that I have a research team for my show, you see people's career and how they went. Hani never really got a sniff in North America. He was a Division 3 player and then played in the Central League and was like the league MVP and was just running amok of the league, but never got a taste of the HL or anything. And then he goes to Germany. And I saw in Ingolstadt, he's like your leading scorer in the DEL for years, and he was leading scorer the year you win the championship, right? That's a player.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, he was definitely a late bloomer, but there's a lot of guys that never get a chance or an opportunity. He's a prime example where he was such a smart player, such a good player. I
Two-way.
think when he first came in, I don't think fitness was a priority. And then he started getting in shape, he started to do things, and you could tell this guy just dominated. And it wasn't just offensively, it was defensively. He was out in all situations, just a great team player. But I think there's a lot of kids out there that probably should get a chance, but sometimes they don't because they get buried in a lower league and just don't get that opportunity.
Well, and it's also right when you turn pro, you have to be ready because you see it all the time. They only give you like every player has a smaller window of what you've done beforehand. My window was a PTO at the end of my senior year, and I didn't do that well, and I didn't play well, and I had the wrong sticks, and I hadn't skated in 2 weeks when I got there, when my season ended, and I didn't do well. And then my window shut real gosh darn fast.
Luck and timing is everything in this sport, and
And being ready when you get your chance.
You do, yes, for sure.
But you knew Kincher from playing in the World Juniors, eh? So playing for Team Canada in the World Juniors, I couldn't even imagine.
Well, I had the fortunate I got to play 2 years. My 18-year-old year, I got to play. I wasn't even on the radar of being on the team, but I knew Barry Trapp was coming into Prince George, and Blair Betts and Scott Myers were on our team, and I knew I had to have a good weekend, and I did. I think I fought a couple times, scored a couple goals, just really wanted to show that I want to be a player. Got an invite. They gave me number 31. I was pretty sure that meant I'm going home.
Yeah, yep.
Stan Butler, who ended up being in Prince George when I was 16, he was assistant coach there. And I remember, I give him a lot of credit because he pulled me aside and he was like, Bowker, what are you doing? You look awful. I was intimidated. He settled me down, ended up making the team. And that was an amazing experience in Canada. And then the next year's when I got to play with Kinshire when we went over northern Sweden. And for me, it was hard because we were in Winnipeg. It was sold out every game. We had a pretty good team. We lost in overtime of the gold medal game that year. It was
Oh,
devastating.
yes.
But a guy like Luongo was our goalie, and he was so good. It was the first time where I came down on a goalie, and you're like, "There's nothing to shoot at. Like, what am I doing here?" So you're basically just putting on a net, hoping for a rebound and practice those things. But he's the reason why we got a silver medal that year. Fast forward to the next year, Northern Sweden, not the same atmosphere, maybe like 300 fans in the building. It was really tough. But that's where I played with Kincher. I also knew Kincher from growing up in Alberta. He was smooth offensive defenseman, no mistakes, just an all around really good player.
Yeah, I ran into him in Germany, but well, your story of Stan Butler hit home was I was just a kid drafted by the Brampton Battalion, last overall, and he's the coach. And I make it to Team Ontario under 17 camp. The final camp with like Spezza was out there. I saw you're on the World Juniors with him too, and all the best players that were born in '83. And I had never been on the ice with all the best guys in Ontario, and I was intimidated. And after the first exhibition game, Stan was there watching, and he pulled me aside after the first game or two, and he said, "Brent, you're a good player. You need to believe in yourself. You're here for a reason." And I thought, the coach of the OHL team saying that to me. And then I went out there and, started believing in myself a bit and played better.
It's funny how just, confidence works in a weird way. You have a coach say that he sees something in you. You're like, oh, wow, I am good. Because it's
Yeah.
so easy to beat yourself up. But once you have a little thing, or even, you score a goal off your skate, you had nothing to do with it. And you're like, oh, I'm a goal scorer. So
Now it's easy.
I think for a guy like Stan, he was just, he'd been around kids a long time. I believe his history was a school teacher. So I think he saw those things and if you give a little bit of self-belief, let's see what a kid can do then. And you don't stay in hockey that long and not have some knowledge about how to motivate kids, how to hold kids accountable and do those things.
Well, I just went and watched. He's still doing her, man. This much many years later, he's still coaching kids in the OHL and doing a great job. I watched him coach the other week and visited him after the game. And this is a guy I never even played for. And just how great he was with me, I never forgot it. And but I'm coaching quite a bit right now, but my main team, my team that I'm the coach of is under 13 Kincardine Canucks. And I like to do the same thing with the players. If I see a kid out in practice really buzzing around, as soon as he does a drill and does something like real smooth and he's giving her, I'll just skate over to him in line and say, "Holy moly, are you flying today?"
That's great. It gives kids confidence, and that's what they need, I think. And especially when they're younger, you want to build them up like that. That's awesome that you do that.
Well, and it's the same in every age though. When I was in Germany, I remember I went to the big budget team, the second league, and we're at one of the first practices, the first or second year, and the GMs they're watching, which was uncommon, and we were just doing some kind of small area game. And then as soon as I did whatever I did, I went to the bench for a sip of water, and the GM came over to me and he said, "You are the best fucking player on this team by a mile." And it meant so much to me that I was like, "Oh my God, I'll do anything for you."
Yeah. Oh, and it probably made you play better, and you're probably more creative because all of a sudden you
You
have that
the
belief in
juice
yourself.
is flowing, right?
Right.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, you have had one heck of a career, so I don't even know where to start. But I guess we could start in the WHL, right? With the Prince George Cougars. So you played your whole WHL career there. And I also noticed, because I got a good research team, you were picked second overall in the dub draft. That's high.
Yeah, it's crazy because in the WHL they drafted 15 years old. It's way too young. So I I grew early. I was
Mm,
probably the same size. I'm not as heavy then, but I was probably 6 feet at 15, 170 pounds, kind of a man child.
right.
And then kids develop and they get, better. So like if I go through my first round of the WHL draft, there's really only one player that had a successful NHL career, or actually two. There's Robin Regier, who was picked, and then Scott Gomez. Everyone else, even in that draft, didn't have careers like that. So to me, it's way too early in the Western League. So I was a good 15-year-old player, and I obviously had a good career, but the WHL draft doesn't mean anything. And that's what I tell all the kids that I'm around here is who cares if you get drafted? I played it, a local guy here in Kelowna, Shea Weber, never got drafted.
He's
He
pretty good.
actually he went to Prince George as a 16-year-old and he got cut. And then he went back to Sicamous, played junior B. The guy from Kelowna saw him, brought him in, probably the best defenseman they've ever had in the history of the Rockets. Just got inducted to the Hall of Fame. So to me, it just shows that the WHL draft, while it's a nice feather in your cap, it really means nothing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It is interesting seeing when kids develop because I find in under 9, under 11, under 13, there are some big boys out there and they don't have to play hockey the same way as the little guys that are having to learn how to protect the puck more, how to use their body more, where the big guy can just bully his way around and not really learn how to use his body correctly and protect pucks. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden those other guys get as big as him, but they know how to protect the puck and he doesn't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, you hear on Spit and Chicklets, Ryan Whitney, he said, what changes? One is hitting hockey. Now it kind of separates people. Girls,
Mm-hmm.
you start to have distractions and partying. And it's
Absolutely.
really, you kind of see where guys venture out to and what happens, but it's the good players that have that focus, they have the love of the game, continue on that path.
It's the guys that truly love hockey and that's what they want. When you're in high school and it's a Friday or Saturday night, you chose to play hockey, not go to the big party.
Correct. Yeah, and it's even gotten more so crazy how disciplined
Oh,
the
are they
pros are, how
disciplined?
disciplined the kids are. It's mind blowing. I here in Kelowna, I have a son who's 18 and he's working out, and the pros are working out there, and I just see what they're doing on the fields, and then I see how they're living, how they're eating. The game has changed to such a professional model here.
And it starts young, man. And I don't know how I feel about it because I think the teams that have the most fun win. And when you make it too professional and there's not enough fun, I think my teams are going to beat you.
Well, there's an element of that too, right? There has to be time for the team bonding, and that's what I loved about Germany is the
Oh,
schedule relaxes a bit, and there is a ton of time for team bonding, and I do think that's when you get to know a guy too, right?
and it's true. And then you also can be Canadians living across the world together and you really become family over the years, right?
100%. That was the best part about especially Germany when you have 9 imports. You also have some guys that have their cards. Everything, it's wrong because everything's in English in their country, so I can see them being a little bit the true Germans being a little bitter about it. But once you bring them in, what an experience it is, and becoming that team like that.
Well, and for me, it was different because I was in the second league, so we had way less imports and way less Canadian Germans. So I mean, some of the German guys, it's weird how when it's kind of like in Canada, there's certain pockets of people that I really get along with, and the Bavarians and the people by Bietigheim and Stuttgart area, they're just fantastic people. And the teammates I had that were from Landshut, Germany, were some of the best teammates I ever had. And the Cabina Fest, hey, that's fun stuff.
Sure is. Yeah. I'm sure your first Cabina Fest, you're like, what is going on here? And then it becomes such a culture and a tradition, and you get to see how they live, what they're doing. You start talking, you have a few beers, and all of a sudden they start talking to you a little bit more. You
All of a
really
sudden,
get
their
to know
English is better.
yeah,
and your
crazy.
and your German's better too. I fun fact for coaching under 13 and the Cabina Fest tradition and keeping hockey alive in my eyes. For my birthday the last 2 years, I have made my team Spätzle and had Cabina Fest in the room.
And did the parents come in too? Like, is it kids and parents or just the
No,
kids?
just the boys. The parents are the fans. They're not actually on the team.
Okay, I like it. I like it. What did the kids think of it?
Well, I heard this season I didn't do as good. I wasn't as focused. I forgot the cheese because I had like griddles. I had it all ready and heated up, and I forgot the cheese to melt the cheese on when I went to the barn. The first year really made great spätzle. This year I was a little off. I think I over what's the spice you put in there? God, I can't even think of it right now, but the spice, I think I overspiced, it had a little too much flavor. And there was one kid that said it was weird, but all of it was eaten. So all the plates were empty.
Well, you've got a benchmark for next year to keep the tradition going.
Well, every time I cook, I try and get a little bit better every time. And, I don't think I did this year.
Nice.
But Cabina Fest with under 13 boys is pretty fun. You get around to root beers for the boys.
That's awesome. That's great.
So getting drafted second round then to the show when you're in the dub, that must be fun stuff, eh?
Yeah, it was. It's funny though. You go to like the draft was in Buffalo, so you go there, and to be honest, I probably would have rather stayed home and been with my friends and family at home and had a party there. Would have been more exciting than kind of you're sitting in the stands. You don't realize what a long day it is. Am I going to get taken? Oh no, what's going on? So there's a lot of anxiousness and anxiety. What was great though was in Buffalo, and when I was a young kid, Adam Graves, we became really good friends, and he's in my wedding party. But I knew him back then. Used to spend a month or so at his house every summer, and he was at the draft with me. And then I went back to his place and spent the summer there. So that was probably a really cool thing for me to have Adam there, and from 13 on, him kind of being a big impact in my life and getting to be a part of that draft with me.
So I always bring up people's poster picks. That was one of the poster picks. I recognize got my childhood heroes. That was Adam Graves with you as a kid, eh?
Correct. Yeah. So
So
I
what's the age difference there?
well,
Why did he take you under his wing? What did you do?
honestly, I have no idea, but there was a golf tournament in my hometown, and I was caddying for my brother. My brother got invited to this tournament, so my parents basically pawned me off, said, "You're caddying for your brother." And I saw this guy. I knew he was a player, and like I was the biggest Oiler fan. And that was the year they won the cup. So it was the kid line: Joe Murphy, Martin Gell, and Adam Graves. It was unreal. And all of a sudden, he's in our golf group. So I think every shot they hit, you're walking down the fairway, I'm in his ear asking him questions. I just want to know hockey. I want to know everything about the Oilers, this. And I think he took a liking to me to the point where at the ninth hole, I gave my brother's clubs and I took Adam's club so I could be closer and have more conversations. I'm sure he got a kick out of it.
Well, he could probably just feel your passion for hockey.
I think so. And then, later that year, he took my address, which I didn't think anything of. And keep in mind, he's a 22-year-old kid. So like 22 years old, I was 22 years old. I didn't have the wherewithal to do that. He got my address. He sent me pictures. There's return address. I wrote him back. Sends me another letter, invites me to an Oilers skate. Great. I went and saw their practice. He took me to my game up in the city. And then later in the year, I spent the whole weekend because he knew I liked Wayne Gretzky and they played the Kings on Sunday. So I went Friday night, spent the night. Saturday, they played the Jets, watched that game. Sunday, got to see him. My dad came, picked me up, went to the game. And
That's
then
incredible.
it was unreal. Like, I just can't believe a 22-year-old man would do that. And then
Right.
he got signed by the Rangers, and I thought the friendship was over. Just logistic wise, it doesn't work. And he said, if you work hard, you earn enough money to get a plane trip, you can come to my hockey school, you can stay at my house. So I did that for the 1 year was just a week. It was awesome. And he says, okay, that was great. You can come next year, but we're going to make it 2 weeks. And he had a brother-in-law. He just started dating his wife, Violet, and she had a brother who was my age. We became good friends. So it worked out well that I didn't have to just be his, he was babysitting me. I was now hanging out with his brother-in-law, Augie, and Augie's cousin, Alir, and we became
Like a
great friends.
family.
And
Family.
yeah, and then every year it went from 2 weeks to 3 weeks to a month. And I was up at 7 a.m. working with an NHL superstar, just scored 50 goals, won the Stanley Cup. And that was my introduction into what pro hockey was I got to see it firsthand with this awesome guy.
Wow, that's an incredible story. Do you think he'd
Yeah.
pod with me? He sounds like my type of guy.
You know what? I can ask him. He is the nicest man ever. Like I don't think his jersey's hanging in the rafters of the Rangers, and he was a great player. Like, don't get me wrong, he scored 50, but it's more for the person he was in the community and everything he's done. He's a legend of a person.
That's great to hear. It's I mean, skated with Ryan O'Reilly. Now that I'm into coaching and I'm trying to get better at that for the kids, I'd skated with him as a player and reached out and said, like, I'm up for helping you if you need any help. And he had been skating by himself. And then I got to go out and move pucks with him and everything. And he's one of those guys that just, you'd see him with the people that would notice he's on the ice or we're on the ice. And then they would just stop and watch us. And they would wait for him to come out. He would sign every stick. He'd take a picture with every person. He would stop and literally talk to them and ask them questions and get to know them. And he's just the salt of the earth guy. And then when those are the guys that end up getting jerseys hung up, and it's like, well, yeah, and they become Hall of Famers, it's because, yeah, they deserve it.
Exactly. And I think a big part of it is the person that starts with it, right? Obviously, they're very talented players, but they've got the compassion to know that these kids are fans, to take time to build them up. And Adam was the prime example, and it sounds like Ryan's the same way. And it's great to hear the guys are like that.
And if like some of the players that don't get it, it's like put yourself in the kid's shoes. Like, do you not remember being that kid and what it would mean to meet an NHL player? You know?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Anywho, so yeah, you get drafted second round. You're in Prince George. You become the captain there. It seems like you became the captain everywhere. But you're a second rounder. You play World Juniors for 2 years, and then the next season you jump right into the NHL. Eh?
Yeah, it was unexpected. I know I even went to Utah before the season started. I got a place, an apartment set up there and everything, and then went to Dallas and camp went well. I think exhibition season, I had a couple goals and assists, just started to play. And at that time, there was a little bit of turnover where there were some spots and somehow earned a spot, but it's hard to say. Obviously, you're in the NHL, it's the best thing ever. I'm also, my first line is Mike Modano, Brett Hull, and Yuri Lettinen. Second line, Jamie Langenbrunner, Joe Newendike, Brendan Morrow. So I feel like I'm just out of my league. Like every day I'm in awe and like pinching myself where maybe you give too much respect
Yep,
and you don't play
yep.
your game because you're too afraid to make a mistake. You too
Because you're
afraid
in
to
awe
piss.
of who you're out there with, right?
Yeah, and you want them to like you. You don't want them to be pissed off or things like that. But
And you almost feel bad taking their puck because you're like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Modano. I shouldn't have taken your puck.
there was no chance of me taking those guys' puck. I think, like, honestly, I tell people, Medano, Hull, and Lettinen, they would pass the puck and it would be like harder than slap shots, and they don't bobble at once. They're just going and I'm like, oh my God, am I really out here with these guys? But
Yeah.
it was an awesome experience. Had such great legends, even a legendary coach like Ken Hitchcock, right? Like he by far one of the smartest hockey men I've ever been around. I think like personality wise, maybe he could grind guys a bit, and he had that legendary team, but it worked and they knew how to handle it. And he was a very smart hockey man, and I got to play with some unreal players. Probably one of my best teammates that I had over my career that I got to meet there was Mike Keane. So I think he's like probably 31, 32 at that time. I'm a 20-year-old kid. Fast forward, we play in Vancouver together. All of a sudden, we're in Manitoba together, and he is by far my favorite teammate. So, you take away from your career, you get these legends and these friends and these great people. And I think I'm grateful for Dallas because I met Mike Keane.
Mike Keane, I saw it. I try to be observant watching hockey, and well, I was a health bomb in the AHL a lot, and when you speak of being on the ice with those guys and being intimidated, I was a college kid that had a hell of a career, and then when I got to the AHL, for some reason, well, I didn't believe in myself, and I was in awe of the guys I was on the ice with, especially the guys that I'd seen in the NHL or on TV, or then guys were getting sent down from the NHL. And I'm like, you were literally just in the NHL and I'm here with you. And I just couldn't, I didn't deal with it right. Um, but anywho, I forget where that, oh, Mike Keane. So I was a health bomb and they played Manitoba, and he had just had like a long NHL career, and he becomes the captain of the Manitoba Moose. And then you saw him go out and play in the AHL like he was playing for the Stanley Cup, and he was like 40 years old or something, and he was playing as hard as anybody on the ice. And I was like, who is this guy? How is he going like that?
There are no bad habits in his game. Like when it comes to the rink, he is like dialed. He never makes a mistake. He makes the right play every time. It's always team first. Off the ice, he might be the funniest guy you ever see.
That's awesome.
What I remember in Dallas, which is, I'm a 20-year-old kid, and my brother and my parents are in the stands, and I'm like, watch Mike Keane once we do the half moon shooting. Because he would put about 5 or 6 pieces of bubble gum in his mouth. He's out there chomping away. All of a sudden, we come to the half moon to do the shots where one guy passes out. He spits out the gum, and then he targets someone in the stands, and then he fires it. And I would say like he's probably 60% banging someone off the head, and then we're howling, and the person that got hit with gum, he's just looking
Has
around
no
like this.
idea where it came from.
It was awesome. But like they're like off the ice, he's hilarious with stuff like that. Obviously, maybe you get in trouble for doing that now, but
Right. You
it was
can't have
awesome.
fun anymore.
No, exactly. They've taken fun out, but he
Everything's
was
being recorded now. There was probably nobody videoing warm-ups before.
my other story about him off the ice, but what a beauty he was we were in Manitoba. Josh Green got married, and Mike's in-laws were in Moose Jaw. So he wasn't able to come to the wedding, but he's like driving back. It's midnight, and he's like, Bowker, I'll be back at midnight. You make sure everyone comes to my house for the after party. So like this is midnight. He's probably early 40s. Okay, sure, Keener. All of a sudden, everyone comes, probably got about 20 people show up, coolers full of beer, probably like 15 pizzas ordered. And I remember I was staying at Nolan Baumgartner's, and we're leaving at like 6 a.m. in the morning. And he's like, "Where are you going?" Like he was so upset. And he's like, "You're coming back here tomorrow." Like he's just that guy that's just so welcoming, that never wants the party to stop, and just
He
a
wants
beauty.
everybody to be together having fun.
That's right.
Mm, I know the type. But another teammate, like there are some legends on that team. They must have just won the Stanley Cup not too long before that, eh?
I think 2 years before they won the cup, the next year they lost to Jersey in the final, and then I was on the team the following year.
Jumped right in there with a team in the finals 2 years in a row. But Brett Hull was your teammate too. Like he's one of the greatest goal scorers ever.
Yeah, and I mean, he was at the end, but the shot, he was the first one that I saw with how everyone's got the whippy sticks now.
The
He
snap
had
to it, the whip.
he had the 75 flex and had that whip, and I remember he was trying to get everyone to use a whippier stick and more leaning on it and letting the stick do the work versus the old wrist shots and stuff. But he was the first one that kind of I noticed had that stick in that shot. But he was a
He
legend.
was ahead of the game that way then.
He was, and sarcastic, funny, but he's Brett Hull. So like you don't want to mess with him, or you don't want to piss him off. You just want him to like you. And
Yeah.
he was a really good guy, liked to have fun as well.
Oh man. And then you like, yeah, that's for me, this is interesting talking to you because the guys you're playing with that rookie year were like my childhood heroes, like Ed Belfour.
Eddie Belfour, yeah, he was, that was,
That must have been something for you as like a 20-year-old kid to be playing with all those guys.
yeah, as I said, I was in awe, and I think even playing in the league, I probably gave too much respect where you didn't, like, even against other teammates, all of a sudden you're at Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg, and you got Steve Yzerman and Fedorov, and you just don't want to rock the boat where like now I've got an 18-year-old who's playing junior hockey, and the first thing I tell him is you do not give any veterans respect. Not until you
Nope.
make the team. Once you make the team, then you give it. But now, like, you do everything you can to get in their grill to piss them off, because you know what happens when you piss veterans off? They come after you, and now you stand out.
Yeah, because you're the one mucking it up with them.
That's right.
And yeah, like when I look back on it, when I jumped into pro and I wasn't ready, especially mentally in the mental side of the game and believing in yourself, I remember going to Columbus's training camp, the one I went to, and we're doing the fitness test. And Sergey Fedorov comes and sits on a bike beside me. And like jeepers, like my butthole puckered right up and I was all nervous and shaking. And I was like, how am I in this room right now, sitting beside Sergey Fedorov? Like, how am I in an NHL dressing room right now? And then they never really let me skate with the real players because, my PTO hadn't gone very well. So I was out there with the kids that had just been drafted. But like, I was like, if I was actually going out there on the ice to do a scrimmage against Sergey Fedorov, I would have been so intimidated and nervous. There's no way I would have performed. And nowadays, I can talk to guys like you that I would have been nervous to play hockey with, and I'm not even nervous anymore, you know?
Well, Sergey Fedorov's up here, and then I'm way down here.
Oh, you're up there, buddy. But like it's interesting as you get older and you see it for what it is, and you're like, when you get to those places, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe you're supposed to be there, or you won't be.
100%. And you made it that far. Like same, like your college career was spectacular. You should have had the confidence to go in there and be like, yeah, I'm going to be this player. But somehow self-doubt gets in there. But if you would have had a veteran, even a veteran that came up or Sergey said like, hey, I saw you on the ice, you look great.
Right.
How much better do you feel, right?
Oh, you feel like a whole different person if yeah, and I had those moments, but there's sometimes I didn't handle them well. I remember like in college and we were going to play like Alaska and their coach put in the newspaper that you read before the game. When you get there, you're reading about our game, and their coach said like that guy, I expect to be watching him on TV soon. And
Yeah.
I read it and I was like, you're talking about me? And then I went out there and I was like, uh, well, I didn't play better. I almost had like I don't know what it was. I was like nervous that people expected that of me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how nerves get in the way or self-doubt, but it's such a big part of the game.
And when you're feeling it, right?
Right. That's right.
So you did the one season that first year. I don't know how many games, but do you remember your first NHL goal?
I do. I didn't even think I scored it. I think Keener shot the puck. It hit Nabokov, and then I was kind of jumping, and I just backhanded it. I thought I missed it, and I thought Keener tapped it in, and in the pile. I'm like, "Way to go, Keener!" He's like, "Kid, that's your goal," and I'm like, "Oh." So
That's awesome.
I was never much of a goal scorer, so I can probably tell you like exactly how they all went. But I was there and I scored a goal, so it was great.
Absolutely. You definitely were there, man. And so you were there with Dallas for 1 year, and then did you get traded to Phoenix?
I did. That summer they traded me to Phoenix for Yurke Lume. They were
Really? He's a good D
yeah,
man.
he was a great D man. The funny story was I was at Adam Graves's place when I got traded, and there was all the talk about him getting traded. So I was kind of in his ear, giving him a hard time about getting traded. And then all of a sudden, my phone rings and it's Bob Gainey, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I got traded." So karma always comes back to get you. But I went to Phoenix that year. I thought I was going to have a great opportunity to play.
Yeah.
Started the year, was okay, wasn't great. Then I got sent down, and you get sent down, you start to question yourself, start to have self-doubt. I don't play well. I was in Springfield, their farm team for like 2 months. And then I got traded from there to Vancouver. Now all of a sudden you've been traded twice in a matter of like, 5, 6 months.
Yeah.
What's going on? So
A bit
that's
deflated, the mind spinning, like
a little bit. I think the only blessing of getting traded to Vancouver was I was going to Manitoba, where I had some familiarity with the rink from the World Juniors. I also knew quite a few guys on their team, so I was going into a position where I maybe knew a little bit more the guys, and I started to play better because I was a little bit more comfortable.
going
But
to a team with guys is a thing. When you're going to a place you already have a buddy that you played with or something, it is very comforting to go into a brand new team.
otherwise, it takes a long time to get to know teammates, and until you actually go for some beers, like we talked about, right? Then you
Mm.
start to know guys, and you can start to, guys get a feel for you. But otherwise, it can be a pretty intimidating process. So that's why going to Manitoba was good for me, and I think it helped me start playing better. But then what really sucked at the end of that year is I think I was close to getting a call up, and I blew my knee out. So now all of a
Oh,
sudden I'm done again, and it's like that was kind of the story where I've always had injuries at inopportune times for my career.
yeah, and it's interesting where when something like that can happen, it can change your whole career because if you got that call up and you're more ready the next time you get called up because you've been there and you've been through the grind and you're like, okay, I'm ready to seize this. You could have ended up being a full timer, right? You go up and play a few good games and then all of a sudden you're there, right? You never
You
know.
never know. You never
Yeah,
know. But after
everybody's tale is different.
exactly, and after that knee surgery, it took me. I played the whole season, the next season in the minors, and then the next season, the first half of the year in the minors until I started playing better, and then I got called up, and I kind of spent that last half of the year up with the Canucks, and I was kind of like, okay, God, but it can take a long time to get back there for players because guess what? You got 20 other guys that are working their hardest to get that opportunity. And
And they're
you're
all
in
good.
competition every game. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's weird in the AHL because you are competing with your teammates. And to me, I hated that from small town Ontario because I had never had to do that. I was always in it with the team, and it
Yeah.
was a weird vibe that way, you know?
What I found with the American Hockey League versus the NHL, but I felt it was more it did seem more together to me. And I think we probably had a really good group of guys and people. Like when the one year Manitoba stands out, like Nolan Baumgartner was there. He's just a spectacular person. OHL guy like Ryan Reddy, he was there. He was a great guy. But we had such a good group that we weren't in it where if guys got called up, we were upset. You were happy for that guy, generally happy. But what we were more concerned about was our AHL team and doing stuff. And I know when we went out, we were always together. We were always having beers. We were always having fun. And then the next day is probably the more fun because then you just make fun of each other from the night before, right? Like
Oh
just
yeah. Yeah.
those things that really make a team. But I felt it was more of a team atmosphere in the AHL in Europe versus the NHL, where I think there's a lot more pressure. Guys are making more money. There's more distractions, all those types of things. But I
There's probably
really
not as much team bonding and time together away from the rink either, eh?
there's not because I mean, you go for team dinners, but you got a game the next day, right? Where and if you're flying out, you're flying out. Where usually in the American League, you're staying overnight. You don't fly out till the next day. You got that day off, so there's times to maybe have those opportunities to bond.
And then I mean, you don't have this, but if you get down to the coast, then they're really a team.
Well, you get once you get
Everybody's
some
just
beers
there to
on the
play.
bus. I imagine you had some long trips with some beers on the bus though too, right? And that's a good bonding too.
It is, and Germany has that, right? Beers on the bus in Germany is a thing after you win a road game on the weekend and you're done for the weekend, and that brings teams together. It's important to drink beers on the bus.
I used to it used to crack me up because you got the double deckers, the players sit up top, and you'd hear the guys' bags and be like clink 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 because everyone had their beers, a few beers for after the game. So you can sit and you can talk about the game, just talk about anything. So
And get to know each other. And you're sitting
that's
on
right.
that bus for 7, 8 hours, and it's like, well, you're gonna get to know each other by the time we get off of this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I might just jump ahead, I think, because I love winning, and you won in Ingolstadt right at the end of your career. And I won in Bietigheim, the second league in Germany, and I couldn't believe how outrageous the parade was, the after party. And you won the DL. So what was that experience like?
Well, that whole year was the craziest year of hockey I've had. It was from having the lowest of lows for like our team, for myself, squeaking into pre-playoffs and doing it. But like I guess my year started whereas I blew my knee out the year before and I worked hard to get back and I worked extremely hard. But what happened for myself was my dad had a terrible accident on the farm and he had to get airlifted to the hospital in Edmonton. I'm still in Kelowna. Like I'm leaving in 3 days to go to Germany for the season. And my dad had this terrible accident. So basically, I don't give a shit about hockey anymore,
No.
right? Like I'm going to see my dad. The team let me miss a couple weeks. Kind of good. I came back and my dad got an infection. They passed away. So it was a terrible year. So by the time I dealt with my dad's, grieving my father,
Yeah.
hockey and me really weren't jiving anymore. I was not in the same shape. I was playing terrible. Now you've worked your way down. I went from like first two line player to like a third, fourth line player on the team. Hated hockey. Not only that, we had a really good team. Like we have Derek Hahn, John Lalliberty, Thomas Greilinger, we got Turnbull, we got Satellite. Like we have a really good team. And then on the defense, we got Comboy, Perriard, like these really good players and we weren't good. Like we had this new Swedish coach who abused us. It was terrible because we worked so hard and he implemented more of a swarm defense where you outnumber everyone in the corner
Yeah.
and then the whole middle of the ice is open. So I don't know
I've
if people
played that. Yeah.
it's a tough system, but so we're doing that and we're just progressively getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And what was hilarious was they went to Augsburg in January. I was hurt, so I actually went to Salzburg to see Joe Motzko because our families are tight. And the guys are
Joe
calling me.
Motzko's a beauty.
He is a great guy. But all the guys are calling me after the game. They're like, "You wouldn't believe what Sunblad just said in the dressing room." He said, "We are going to be playing on April 29th in Game 7 of the finals." Now, We're not even in playoff position at that time. And everyone's like, this guy's like it was laughable. Somehow we squeak in the pre-playoffs and we just slowly build momentum. And
You guys won it and you just made the pre-playoffs. So the people that aren't listening, that's when you finished 7th to 10th place in the league and you got to play to make the final 2 playoff spots, right?
correct. And not only that, somehow Berlin is in this pre-playoffs, and Berlin has always been the powerhouse of the league. They know how to win. They've had this reputation. We went 1-1, and then game 3, like even for the playoffs, I was kind of in and out of the lineup at the end of the year. I wasn't enjoying hockey. I knew I was done hockey that year, so I went to the coaches. I said, "Look, we've got an extra import. I'm done. Play the other guys. They need to get jobs." So it was kind of me being in and out of the lineup. So game 3 in Berlin, I'm riding a tour bus from after pregame skate until game time, having a few beers, checking out Berlin, going to this game, watching in the stands, thinking we're losing, and I'm going home. I'm packing up my family stuff. The year's over, my career's over. I was kind of in a bad mind frame.
Well, you've been through a lot, and when you're not loving hockey, when you have other things going on in your life, there is no way to play good.
Yeah. So, but somehow we win that. We win that game. And now all of a sudden we're playing Krefeld, who's the best team in the league, who just beat us the year before. Haven't played great against them. Obviously, we won on Friday, and I think the game was Sunday. We maybe had a few too many beers Friday. Sunday, we go into Krefeld, and we don't play good. And somehow the coach inserted me in the lineup for game 1 at Krefeld. I don't know why, but he did. And I played terrible. I played terrible again.
Well, at least
So
you're honest.
what happened in that game was Tim Conboy, he jumps one of their players, and we almost have a line brawl. Like Savalek fights someone, Tim Conboy fights someone, and all of a
Brings the
sudden
team together, doesn't it?
our team kind of goes like this.
Yeah.
But then
Fighting brings people together.
what also happens that game is we get some suspensions. Patrick Kopchen takes a puck to the jaw, and he has some issues with his mouth, so he can't play. So now we're short defensemen. Game 2, I think I'm out of the lineup. I'm just like, oh, whatever. Coach calls me before the game. Have you ever played defense? And actually, as a kid, I played defense. I played defense till I was about 13. I'm like, well, not since I was 13. He goes, well, could you? And I'm like,
yeah,
I'll do anything. I don't care. Sure.
Yeah.
2 lucky assists, like where I bounce one off the glass, guy hits a guy, gets in. Another kind of
those are assists. Bouncing off the glass and out is an assist every time.
And then all of a sudden, we're missing a net front guy on the power play. I get put net front. Hunter hits me. I hit a goal. Well, guess what? Now I'm down here.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, geez, I'm a player. I played defense from game 2 of the first round right to the finals, and was a valuable defenseman for our team. And now all of a sudden, I love hockey again.
Yeah.
And we roll through Krefeld. We roll through Hamburg. Now we get to Cologne. And I've got a great story about Cologne. And I know that Hunter said we got these watches for winning, but I'm the captain of the team. I'm in the shower. Kopchen and Gavlik, who are two Germans, are like, Boucker, we want to go talk to ownership because we don't want rings, we want watches. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I said, you don't talk to the owners about anything. Like hockey gods, like we don't mess with them.
No, you got to finish.
We're not saying anything. Those idiots went and they did talk to ownership, and the ownership said, sure, we'll get you guys watches. We lose game 1. Yeah. We lose game 2. And I'm like, oh no, like you got to be kidding me. But somehow we turned it around. Win game 3, win game 4, win game 5. Had an opportunity to win game 6 at home. We lost. But then we go into Cologne and we won game 7 in front of 18,000 people. It was and that was my last professional game. So it was an amazing finish.
What a way to finish it. And then to still be willing to do whatever it takes for the team and play forward or defense is that's what I try and tell my kids I'm coaching now. It's don't ask me why I'm asking you to do something. If I ask you to play defense, play defense. If I ask you to play forward, play forward. If I ask you to play wing or center, the coach is asking you to do it. The team, it's how I think we're going to win this game. And if afterwards you can ask me why, and I can give you my reasoning, but in the heat of the moment, just do what I ask of you and let's win the game. Right.
But I think that's what hockey is. And that's what makes it to me, hockey is the best team sport, because when you do put the team first and you will sacrifice for the team, whether it's, chipping the puck in because you're at the end of your shift, and if you get caught, you're screwed, or just making decisions that value the team first.
Hmm.
That's what makes hockey the best. And I think that's why hockey players are known for being such great guys, because I think they've learned and grown up sacrificing for the betterment of the team. And the guys that do that are usually the best guys to have on your team.
And they're usually, from what I've found, especially being out in my shed and seeing who continues to play and who had the longest careers, we're the best teammates. And the guys that put the team first are the guys that keep getting contracts. Doesn't matter how many goals and assists they put up each year. Teams want them back because of the person they are and the teammate they are.
100%. And winning, you have a reputation as being a winner, and now you can play. And I think part of me wishes I could have kept playing because I won and I wanted to see what I could do again. And you just
Oh, it gets you going again, right? Winning. It's like, oh, I'm back, baby.
it's addicting. It
It
was
is.
addicting. So that was hard for me retiring, knowing that we won. But at least what it also gave me was an appreciation, and I left on a positive note. Versus if we would have lost in Berlin that game, I would have flew home. I probably would have hated hockey instead of having what I've felt the last 11 years in retirement is I think it's the best game in the world.
And I had a different way of ending. My knee goes mid-season in November of a season. Doctor say I can never play again. And it was just over like that. And my whole plan that year was only to go back and help win something and be the best teammate I could. And then I was planning on being done that year, but I never got the opportunity to help that team win or do anything on the ice. And then when I was flying back and it had all been over, I have no job lined up. I didn't play in the leagues I want to play in and have the money I wanted. And I'm like, the hell have I been doing? And then you hate hockey for years.
Yeah.
And then it's these kids that bring me back into it. And I see the love of hockey they have. It's brought mine back. We get to go out and try and win trophies together, and we do quite a bit, and it's really fun. I don't know if you've heard, but the Kincardine Canucks were all Ontario champions last year.
I did hear that on some of your former
I,
casts, but
I, I try to let people know that I got players around here and I think they can go places because I truly believe in them as people and teammates. And I have a lot of players that are making the team decision first.
that's great. And that's what hockey is. And I'm sure that they're the benefactors of your successes and what you've learned in the game
And
doing
my
that.
failures.
Well, you know what? As long as you're learning from them, that's awesome. And same thing, like I felt pretty lonely as well, or not lonely, but you miss the hockey world. And then, all of a sudden I start listening to Spittin' Chicklets. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, it just reminds you of being in a hockey room. And now you're doing this podcast. I'm sure that helps too, right? Bring you back in the
It
hockey
brought me
world.
right back into it, and it's like now it's like I'm sitting on the back of the bus with you after a game in Germany, and we're getting to know each other on the way back, right?
Without beers.
Yeah,
Imagine how good it would be if you had beers.
I know. When I started this and I called Two Ales and Hockey Tales, I thought it'd be like when the kids go to bed, I go out and have a couple beers. And then it's turned into like I just like talking hockey. I don't need to drink when I do it. I just want to see guys that I like
Yeah.
and that then the good guys know the good guys and just kind of spiraled out of control that I
That's
like it and it's fun and I don't need to get paid for it because this is my hobby.
that's awesome. I'm happy that you're doing it and you found that.
Well, and there's been some neat things happen. So if anybody does listen to us today, Rich Bateman, who had had a stroke in Sheffield, England, and his son had reached out to me over 2 years ago to help out and maybe raise money because they needed help. I had the son on. We talked about it. I did a jersey raffle. We raised just a little bit of money. Then a guy got inspired by listening to us that had never met them but was a fan of the same team, decides to bicycle 600 kilometers to raise money for them. And then their next door neighbor decides to join them. And then there's two guys biking 600 kilometers to raise money for this family that I had never met other than this. And well, over 2 years later, that guy moved home today.
Wow. Wow. How impactful is that?
Well, and he has all the equipment at their house to be able to move home. And that was started out from doing this shit. It's
That's great.
make you want to cry.
What a story. That's amazing. That is so awesome that you had that impact. And
Well,
even I listened to Kyle Rank on the cast you had before, and just hearing what he's doing in the community there too, right? Like, it
what a
shows
guy.
the character you have, the character he has. And I think you go through hockey players, that's what they are. They're really good people.
Well, I mean, everybody, some people do more than others, but what Ranker's doing with getting equipment for kids, and now he's running the junior organization there and trying to make it the best he can and use all of his resources to help these kids make it places. He's just a great guy, but like his old man has passed, but when we were growing up, his old man was the same in the community, and he got it honestly from his old man.
Nice.
Yeah. So, anywho, the other neat one that I got to bring up since we're talking about it is episode 416. Fellow that got to a point in his life that he jumped off a bridge onto a highway and was then paralyzed and has had a lot of issues, has started, well, he got out of that, and well, he's found his love of hockey and sledge hockey, and we had a chat about everything, and he was trying to raise money for a wheelchair that would he'd be able to stand up and actually do things in the kitchen and be able to do things around his house, and it was 8,000 pounds was needed. He did a fundraiser. I had him on. We sent out the link and talked about it and did some stuff. And then he posted to thank everybody today. He raised his 8,000 pounds, and the last donation was from a guy he's never met, never heard of. His name is Sam, and it sounds like a Welsh name, but anywho, that guy, the last donation got him exactly to 8,000 pounds, and it was over 3,000 pounds that the guy donated.
Wow,
Like
Sam's the man.
Sam, a guy
Well,
that's
and
never
you're the
met him,
man,
a guy that's never met him.
but
Isn't that
probably
something?
from the link and getting on there. That's awesome. It's great what you're doing.
It's man, it's been an interesting day hearing that stuff from just talking on my work computer on lunch.
It's funny story with sledge hockey is where my son is playing junior hockey in Camrose, Alberta. They had this coach had been there, legendary coach, been there for like 20 years. He retired, and now they brought him into the Hockey Canada sledge hockey team. And I've just been chatting with him, and but he says, you know, they've got video and they're using like NHL players like about things, and he's like, guys, NHL players can skate backwards. They can do this. When you're on a sled, it's all about your angles. It's all about doing, but just how
He
the game
saw it
changes,
differently.
right? Yeah, you have to see hockey from in a different lens, which he is, and he said he's enjoying it so much because of those things and the differences. But in the end, he says the same thing. It's about passion. It's about teamwork. It's about doing all these types of things.
No, and it's interesting. It's like coaching different age groups in minor hockey. Every practice is different for what level you're coaching. I've had under 9 house league, under 11 boys, under 13 boys, and you got to know your crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's different ways of trying to win. And yeah, now I'm even helping coach the senior team. I guess I've got right bit with this, but you just mentioned your son's playing junior hockey in Camrose. I know some boys that have played for Camrose. So you got, what do you got? 3 boys?
I have 3 sons. I've got my oldest who's 18 and he's playing in Camrose. I've got a 15-year-old who his sports lacrosse, and then a 10-year-old who's playing hockey as well.
I saw the picture of you on the ice with your 3 boys, and I got pictures of me out with my kids. My son comes out to help with my daughter's practices. We've gone out to skate, just the 3 of us sometimes when ice is available, and getting on the ice with your kids and seeing them having fun and loving the sport you love is pretty neat, isn't it?
I think so, and I think what is about it, it's about instilling the right values in the kids. About the big thing for my right now myself, I'm coaching with a great group of guys, but another former pro in Todd Simpson who had a long NHL career too. But it's about the values of what's important. That's passing the puck, right? Like passing to me is number one when they're young, because everyone's taught right now it's all about skills, toe drags, doing this, and their heads are down and they're not doing it. All of a sudden, you lift your head. There's a big world out there. Wow, that guy's ahead of me. He's open. How good does it feel to have your teammate score a goal, do those things? So I enjoy almost teaching the right values, back check and changing at the right time, doing those things, but having, it's got to be a positive atmosphere for the kids. I think I had another mom come up to me last week and she's like, thanks for being so good with my son. Like he's had a really hard time and he's really particular, but you've really helped him. Where I see he's particular. I'm like, oh man, that's good luck. You just a little thing to shift his mind. And now all of a sudden the kid's like, oh man, that's good luck. I can do this.
And
But
what age group are you coaching?
so right now it's the U10 team I'm helping out with.
Yeah. Isn't it
But
fun?
it is. It's really good. I know everyone talks about the parents and that it's hard. But I do think once parents see the right things happening, then they're like, oh wow, they're in good hands. We'll just step away. And you don't have that. Obviously, you're always going to have that one or two that's
Hmm.
very intense and crazy. But I think overall, it's a good group. They just want to see their kids
Have
having fun
fun.
and excelling. And I think a big part is just becoming a team and having a group of kids, because right now I think it's hard. Some kids that don't have that atmosphere, those friendships, the accountability, it's tough. It's a tough world, and a world that we probably don't understand from what they're growing up in, because now this is how they socialize. They're on video games talking to their friends. They're never over together.
No.
So having a place to go to is a big deal.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I also have appreciated the parents I've been with for, well, I guess this is my fourth season coaching. Is I've never had a parent problem really. I mean, for the most part, they trust us to do our jobs as the coaches, and you set the bar at the start of the season, like this is what we want and what we expect. And what I say is I want us to be a hockey family. I'm like, negativity is exhausting. If you're up there bitching about me or in the parking lot bitching, it's like it just is a slippery slope, and then everybody's bitching, and negativity is exhausting. And if you're driving home saying negative things, that sits with them, and I'm like, let's all have fun and be positive and enjoy it. And I got the parents to do moo-offs in the hotel last tournament. I got them to get on all fours and look at each other in the eyes and see who laughed first and moo at each other. And it was awesome.
That's hilarious. I've never heard that one. That's pretty good.
Well, once you start mooing, it can really bring a team together.
Oh, that must be an Elmira thing, hey?
Actually, I found out about it from Scotland. My buddy ran a hockey school there, and the game was tied at the end. He said, "What do you want to do, overtime or a shootout?" And the kids said, "We're having a moo off."
Wow.
And
Wow.
sent me the video, and I've been hooked on mooing since.
You're gonna have to bring that to decide a game one time. That would be amazing.
I actually did it to well, my goalie had a shutout and a player had a hat trick, and I was supposed to give out player of the game. So I had them get down in the middle of the room in front of the boys and do a moo off.
Sweet.
And you know what was cool about it was the guy that got the hat trick won, and he gave the player of the game to the goalie.
Sweet.
That's hockey.
See that? Perfect. They're paying attention.
Yeah, I liked it. It made my day. Okay, back on track. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore, but we're talking about coaching kids. And have you been doing it a lot then? What have you been doing you've been done for 9 years?
11 years now. I started right away when I got home. I started coaching, and I coached pretty regularly I did it like 7 or 8 years, and then I kind of burnt out because where we are, the rinks, we don't have a lot of rinks, so ice time's limited. So we have a 5:30 a.m. practice once a week. So you're up at 4:30. You're at
Actually,
yeah, yep, on the
we
ice at 5:30 to 6:45.
we just had one at 7 a.m. that well, we don't get enough ice time or practices, so the parents of the team, we paid out of pocket to get an extra ice time, or else my kids would have no practice until the Friday and then play the
Yep.
games on the weekend, and we would have
Yep.
nothing during the week. So we mix in every other week Tuesday morning practices just so we can do
And
more
otherwise, they
stuff.
get one practice a week.
Half ice.
Wow. Wow. You're more limited than we are. We're limited where we're on the ice once a week, but we get two practices a week and then our game times. So we're not bad, but one of them is, and so I had both boys playing on a development team, and I had two 5:30 a.m. practices every Tuesday and Thursday. And
That'll catch up with you.
you just slowly burn out. So I took a couple years off, but now I'm kind of back in it with my younger guy because I really didn't coach him as much as I did the other boys.
Right.
So I'm really enjoying it. It's
Uh,
it's nice to be back.
It is nice to be back, and yeah, coaching these kids is it's like last year when I got just so into it, so invested. And I mean, my competitive juices were flowing as much as they ever did playing, trying to help this under 13 team win. And then when we did, and we had all the celebrations and the summer parties and the reunions, I was trying to picture, I'm like, how do I start all over again with a new team? Like, how do I bring the same spirit? And you know what? I have had no problem.
Yeah, I think it just happens like organically too, right? As long as the
Once you get the new guys in and they're getting to know each other and you're around it and you see it and you're like, ah, oh, this is hockey.
exactly. And nothing like winning a game that brings kids together too, right? And they're happy for each other, and
Oh
it's great.
yeah. I agree. We won our first two tournaments and got trophies and did the whole deal. And they shaved my head and we did belly
Oh boy.
flops and moo offs. And I looked good for a little bit there. Yeah. But our last tournament, well, we ran through it again. And then we got to the finals, played a really good team. They had some really good players. We had a lot of chances to score, and their goalie just really played goalie that day, and we lost 1-0. And when I look at it, it's like, the boys played hard, they played together, they played the right way, and we lost to the team and a goalie. And it's like, well, I can't wait to play that team again. But I think this loss isn't a bad thing for us. We couldn't have won all three tournaments, then gone into the end of the year with the same drive and juice as losing your last final 1-0.
Yeah, well, you need some adversity. I mean, it's the same thing in pro. You need adversity to learn from, to grow from.
I agree. Totally. So, anyways, I got to jump back into your pro career. We've been bumping around here. You were in Arizona, then you get to the Canucks. So you get to the Canucks, and you're playing with more legends: the Sedin twins, Naslund, Bertuzzi, and Trevor Linden. Who that was the curve I always used growing up, was the Linden curve.
Yeah. Vancouver was great, especially that I got called up right before the lockout that half year, and that's when the West Coast Express was on fire. So that was Bertuzzi, Naslin, and Morrison. That was our top line, and those guys were dominant. Todd was this big body, just dominant in front of the net. You had Nazi, who had that great shot, hockey sense, and then Brendan Morrison was just the motor on that line. He got pucks. He was all over the place. What was funny was you'd hear Nazi and Mo giving it to Morrison, like, "Hey, give me the puck, give me the puck." He's like, "Jesus, I can only get one at a time, boys. Like, leave me alone." But they were phenomenal. I don't think the Sedins they were up
They were
there, but
getting there.
they weren't at the superstars they became at the end, but they were like just on the cusp. And that's the year they had Anson Carter.
Yeah.
I believe it was Anson, and they were really good. Like it was a fun city. My wife's from Vancouver, so it was just nice coming home to British Columbia. We live in Kelowna in the summer. My wife's from that area. I played in Prince George, so it was really nice being there. Unfortunately, that was the year that the Bertuzzi Moore incident happened. So that really changed the scope of our team. I feel if we had Bertuzzi in the lineup for playoffs that year, I do think we lost to Calgary in Game 7 in overtime.
Right. And he would
And
be a game changer.
he would be a game changer. And Calgary went to the finals that year, and but they had a great team. Jerome McGinley is one of my favorite all-time players. He was such a leader, a battler. But I feel the team we had with Bertuzzi and the way they were playing, I think we had a shot at going.
Yeah, and that's tough. Yeah, it was a tough situation, and when something like that happens, it can be a distraction, right? There's just so much noise.
Well, it was unfortunate distraction, and I mean it was an unfortunate incident. What happened, that's one of the bad things about hockey too, right? Like Moore hit Naslin. Naslin was the leading scorer in the league. Got his elbow up, concussion. Of course, we're coming after you, right? Like that's
Every
going to
time,
happen.
every time.
It just shouldn't have been Todd that did it. Like that game, I think Moore fought Matt Cook off the opening draw, thinking that was going to be enough. Well, Cookie wasn't really one of the tough guy fight. He plays hard, but he wasn't a fighter. So there's Brad May, there's Wade Brookbank, there's
Yep.
myself, there's the Yarko Ruchu. There's a lot of guys that chased him all game, and nothing was happening. And then what was worse too is the game got out of hand. All of a sudden it's 8-1, 8-0.
And then
Somebody's
something like that happens. Yeah.
That's right. If it
I,
would have been a tight game, I bet it never happened.
and I've actually tried to explain that to my kids. It's like we've had a few blowouts this year, and I say to them, I'm like, "Okay, guys, so just so you guys are aware, when teams start losing this badly, they may do stuff, and you need to have your head up and be prepared."
Yeah, I would hope at the age you're coaching it's a little too young, but I think junior
Every once in a
hockey.
while, they'll just label a kid like, because
Yeah,
there is no checking, and then all of a sudden you're cutting across the middle, and a kid decides, you know what, we're down 7-0. I'm going to hammer this kid.
yeah,
Hmm. It does
yeah.
happen.
I think definitely in pro hockey, and it seems to have gone away. But I think back in the day,
Well,
you'd
you
be
couldn't give
scared.
an inch, right? And it's that was how I was raised. Was like, well, if they try to push us around, we got to push them harder.
Yeah, and it's funny how like I still see like back in the day you wouldn't see power play one go out in a blowout, right? Like it might be
Right,
power play two, it might even be your third, fourth line guys because we don't want to embarrass you.
right.
Yeah, now with the way points are and stuff, I see power play ones out at the end of the game. I'm like, what the heck are they doing? Like
Yeah,
there's
well, and it is true. Why is it to pad your best player stats and make them feel good? Because, I mean, for me, I would want to put out the third or fourth liner so they can get a goal and feel better about themselves for the next game.
yeah, it doesn't make sense. I do think it's probably the money, the stats, the padding, doing all that. Even just them saying we want to keep working on our routines and our routes and doing
Yeah.
those
Oh,
things.
yeah.
But that's what I liked about old school hockey was those things really didn't happen. You never really want to embarrass a kid, right? Like, you just or another team. You just want to play. You want to be professional, like you
Right.
do it every day. Move on. We're gonna go do it again.
Wow, you're saying all the right things to me today because that we've had some interesting games in a couple tournaments, and what I said to them is like I don't want any bad habits. We're not playing hockey differently. We're gonna play hockey the right way, and it's not our fault if we're better than them. But when you score, there's no celebrating, there's no going by the bench, and but like the kids were getting it on their own. They just score and go line up and then play the next shift, and it's nice when that happens because I don't want them not scoring when they get the chance. Like if you get a chance to score in hockey, score, you know,
Score, score, but act good. Like I used to tell the
act like
kids,
you do it.
nothing bothers me more than those celebrations that they do because it just gets out of hand. So eventually I said, okay, there's two things you can do, or three things: two hands, one hand, maybe a quick pump. That's it. And that's all you need, right? Like you don't need more than that.
Well, and the funny thing for me watching minor hockey is some of the other teams it's such the wrong time to celebrate.
Yeah.
Like you can be down a couple goals, and because you scored a nice goal, you're going and swiping the ice. It's like, buddy, you're still losing.
Yeah, I know. I know. They don't get it. They just see that they made a great play, but
It's funny.
those are the values. You want to teach them that just play the game. All the
Just
other stuff, it's just garbage, but just play.
I totally agree. So you did have a lockout year, man. That stuff jams everybody up in the hockey world. It even trickles down to the second league in Germany. I was an import there. They had already signed me when the lockout happened. Who knows if they sign me if they know that's actually coming? Because we had NHLers on our team. Almost every team in our league had NHLers come and take the import spots from. Well, that was our job, you know. And then all of a sudden, these NHL guys are taking our jobs, and you know, it's not a good feeling. But you went to Finland, eh?
Yeah, I kind of got caught. I played the first half in the American League, and then I went up to the NHL for the last half. I was kind of up and down that last half of the year. But what really screwed me was I finished the year on the NHL roster, where if I would have got sent down the last game, I would have been able to play in the American League in Manitoba. So, at that time, I'm 24. I think I'm just kind of on the verge of getting back in the show again. And all of a sudden, I don't have a job, right? Like I can't be in Manitoba playing with all my friends and teammates. And I'm left at home. And I think I was skating with the Kelowna Rockets. There was myself, Todd Simpson, and Scott Ferguson, where we were skating with the Rockets. And finally, my agent, Don Baisley, he's like, hey, I got an opportunity in Finland. They need a centerman. Can you play center? I'm like, I will play anything. To tell them yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go over and play center. So I went over there. It was a good city. It was a good team.
Where
But
were you?
it was Turku, TPS. But they don't have as many imports, and the Finns, they don't really speak English to you. So like I
Uh,
was going in, it was a lonely year. I drive to the rink, it's pitch black,
yeah.
and then I'd leave the rink. You leave the rink at like 1, and you have 2 hours of daylight, and it's pitch black again. But I did learn a lot. Like, they do a lot of skill work. They do like there was a lot of advantages to going over there, but I wasn't ready. I still wanted to be in North America
Yeah.
playing. And I think I didn't have the right mindset where when I went to Germany, I knew I was done and I wanted to enjoy it and I wanted to do the best I could there.
I understand. And when you're in that North American grind and you're right there, you want to be there, and you would have wanted to be in the AHL right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny story, because I heard you talking about flying over and having to play and do stuff. But we flew over. My wife and I, we were just engaged at that point. So we fly into Turku. I thought I'd be playing that night. Like I just dropped the plane. I thought I was playing. They're like, no, no, you don't play. You can sit. So I sat in the box with the GM. My wife is sleeping like this. But after the game, he gives us our car. He's like, well, here's your car. I've never grown up driving manual. I only had an automatic car. And my wife knew how to drive manual, but I'm like, don't you dare. Like I'm
I
driving
got
it.
this.
I
I
got
got
this.
this.
And it's just like I'm driving all over the city, not knowing where I'm going, stalling out, doing everything. So that was my funny moment about me not being able to drive and doing that. But it's just those are all the experiences you have over there, right? Like you're just this North American not knowing what you're doing.
The new North Americans that come over every year, and every year there's guys that have never drove a standard. Some of those times watch them drive out of the parking lot for the first time are my favorite moments of the year.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's in Ingolstadt because the Audis are sponsored. They started just giving the North Americans automatics because they're like, look, you idiots don't know what you're doing. You get these cars.
Well, then you get to the UK and you're sitting on the other side of the car, shifting with your other hand, man.
That would be an experience. I'm sure there was a learning curve there, eh?
Germany was one thing. Yeah, I had already knew standard, so it was one thing. But yeah, the other side of the road's different. But then they're putting guys in cars with standard that have on the other side of the road that have never done it. It's like this is so fun.
It's funny though, doesn't it give you the perspective when you go over there? What it made me feel when I went over to Europe was I felt guilty for not helping the Europeans more.
Mm.
You know, when those guys come over, because you really when you go to Europe, they give you a house, they give you like basically you're handed your life. When those guys come over to North America,
They got to figure it all out.
they're not handed anything, and I do feel guilty where I didn't know that it was like that or what they were feeling. Where perspective is everything, right?
And as a captain leader, which you were on like every team, yeah, you'd want to help your guys feel comfortable. It's like when I flew over to Cardiff and you got guys that have been there for years that are just like, well, this is where you go. This is the best spot to eat. This is, and it's like, well, just you explaining that to me makes this way easier.
100%.
Yeah. So then you do that and then you're back with the Canucks for 2 more years and you're up and down battling still, eh?
Yeah, so after Finland, they signed me to a one way. So I was like, wow, I'm in the show. I've made it. Like this is great.
One way
Day
would
before
feel great.
it did. Well, it made you feel like, okay, I've got I've got a spot. It's mine to lose. Day before the season starts, I rip my groin right off the bone, and I don't come back until January of that year. And by that time, there's a young guy named Alex Burrows who's doing really well in Manitoba, and he slips in. And boy, did he take advantage of that opportunity because he
Didn't he?
had one heck of a career and he's one heck of a player. Like I can't say that I would be a better player. He was the better option,
Right.
and they went with that. And then the next year they signed me, but I was in the minors. And again, I got a staph infection halfway through the year, missed the rest of that year. And I was just like, man, I've just had some terrible luck. I
Yeah.
was lucky to get a job with Portland the next year.
Well, you did go to Portland, and that is how the AHL works, though, is the guys that have been right there that are great leaders, they become captains in the AHL to help raise the next wave of puppies, right?
Yeah, I think I was fortunate to go to Portland because Brian Burke was my GM in Vancouver and he was the GM in Anaheim. So I kind of had an in there and he said, sure. But I was, now I'm on American. I went from playing NHL deals to an American League deal.
Yeah.
But we had
Changes your
that year.
mindset too, doesn't it?
It
It's tough.
does.
Yeah.
But we had a fun year. Like I really enjoyed Portland. Kevin Dineen was the best coach I played for. Just as a coach, but also as a person, he was just awesome. He was a great fit for our team. We had guys like Andrew Ebbett, who had a phenomenal career over in the U.S., but also in Europe.
I know him. He was at University of Michigan. I was at Western Michigan.
Oh, you probably hated him.
Well, those guys would beat us and, I'd score my goals and stuff. And then we got to pro and he was so much more ready than me. And then you see what his career was compared to mine. And it's like, wow, you really did her. But he was a hell of a player, two-way player. He did everything right. Yep.
He did. I think what cracked me up about him was he'd go out Friday, Saturdays. Like, we're playing 3-on-3s, and I'm like, Ebby, are you sure you should be doing this? He goes, I don't know, I'm feeling it. I'm good. I'm good. I'm like, okay, do your thing. And he did. He over a point a game, just a dominant player, but just a good person. That year in Portland was probably one of my most fun years. We had just a great year. I had my craziest playoff experience that year. We're playing Providence. We lose game one, 11-0. We lose game two, 10-1. Like you lose
Keepers.
game like that, you're done. And I remember we're riding the bus home and Kevin Dineen says, Boucker, come up here. And he gives me his credit card. He goes, tomorrow you guys are going for lunch. Here's your card. Like have a good lunch, and like just clear your minds, have some beers, and then let's get back to work. And luckily, because the way the rinks work, that was on Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday. We didn't play till the next Friday, so we had some time, and we just got all the shit out of our system,
Yep.
and we won four straight.
Wow. That's quite the
So like you
turnaround.
don't lose game one and two like that and come back very often. Like that's the craziest playoff
And
experience.
and also there's not many coaches that give you the credit card and said, go get your minds right and go be get a team for a day.
Well, Kevin Dineen had a long pro career, and when I I never saw him as a player, but I can imagine what he'd be like as a teammate, and I
Yep.
think he'd be one of those guys. He'll fight for you, he'll do whatever, but he's team first, and that's why I really enjoyed him as a coach.
It sounds like my type of guy. And another guy that was on that team was Steven Dixon, one of my favorites, who, well, our backstory is I had never met him. I had heard great things of this new guy in Cardiff after I was retired. And then they invited me over for Wally night. And well, when I was hurt that year, the last year, and I couldn't play, I became the pregame speaker. So I did well, I geared down the front of the team, spray painted as the GOAT, Joey Martin, and had a devil spray painted on my chest and had the mascot's head on and came in Bouck and gave a vitalizing speech. And I think the boys loved it because then Dicko came on the pod after. We had a fun night out after the game. They won. And then we've been friends since. And then we got to go back to a testimonial and get to know each other for a weekend. And that guy is a gem.
He is a beauty. It's funny because you kind of lose track of guys. So I listened to his episode on your pod, just
uh,
catching up, just to see what guys are up to,
and that's what's
and
so fun about this.
it brought me back. 'Cause he's a great storyteller, right? He's
Oh,
always so happy. He's always laughing.
I was gonna
And
say you'll never find him in a bad mood.
no, no, and I think that's what I love about him. But as a player, he never made mistakes. He worked super hard. Like he just did the right thing all the time. And that's why he's such a great pro player and why he played for so long, because he loved the game, but he also played it right. But off ice, he was hilarious. Like he was just so
Oh,
funny. And I did have me, Dickie, and Jason King. We'd always go for pregame at Olive Garden, and there he is with his ketchup all over his stuff, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is like whatever, like he's
oh
crazy.
God, I've heard about the ketchup, but Olive Garden, that brings me back to playing in North America. And I tell you, we'd get the soup and salad. It's a cheap meal, but then you'd also get the breadsticks with the Alfredo boat. You'd just be
Yeah.
dipping breadsticks in Alfredo, and I'm sure hockey players are still doing that nowadays. But boy, the Dayton Bombers would go crush Alfredo and breadsticks.
Well, luckily as hockey players we burn enough calories that's okay. If we were to do it now, it probably wouldn't be a good decision.
I always thought I was burning enough calories. It didn't seem to actually work out that way. So, one of your Portland years, I think it was your first one. You guys played 18 playoff games, so you guys went on a run.
We did. We lost in the semifinals to Wilkes-Barre and game seven, and we had opportunities to win. We should have won that series, but we just fell apart at the end, which was a tough. But it was a really fun playoff run.
Yeah, it would be. And playing with good guys and going on a run in playoffs is the best, isn't it?
There's nothing that brings a team together, and by that time, Portland, it was springtime in Portland. It's right on the ocean. Three of us lived kind of in a place called Higgins Beach, so we had these houses by the beach. Everyone's coming over to the houses. You're hanging out in the afternoon. It just
You're
really
playing
creates
hockey in
a good atmosphere.
springtime when the sun's out.
There's nothing better.
No, there isn't. And it's
No.
like you can live in Dayton, Ohio while you're in the East Coast, and then your team goes on a run with a bunch of dandies and you make it to like the semifinals and you're flying to Florida to play the Everblades and you're like, wow, we're really doing it now. And then you go to Idaho for the finals and you're like, wow,
Wow.
from Dayton, Ohio, we're really doing it.
Hard to stay focused going to those cities.
It sure is. Florida, especially in the semis. But then once you win game seven, all bets are off.
Yeah, you earned it then.
So after 2 years in Portland, then it is time. It's done. You've captained the AHL for a couple years on AHL deals. You head to Germany and Ingolstadt. How do you decide on Ingolstadt?
So there was a Buffalo scout, John Cristiano, and I think he knew Jim Boney, who was the GM of Ingolstadt. Then just said, "Hey, this is a player that I think you should look at." And I don't even know how it came about, but like some advisor or agent contacts you, "Hey, Ingolstadt wants to sign you." I'm like, am I getting spam mail or like
Is
what's
this
going
real?
on? Signed it, worked out, and I could tell I could tell there was a shift going on, especially because I was with Anaheim system before, and then Buffalo came in there because Buffalo decided to keep Kevin Dineen. Kevin Dineen vouched for me, said, "Hey, you should bring Tyler in." I got a spot, but I could just tell it was going to be maybe another year of that, and then I'd probably be done hockey. Or you got to make a decision what's best. And I felt what was best for my family was going over to Europe, and Germany seemed to be the best league for imports, anyways, for myself.
How old were your kids at that point?
My oldest boy, Jack, was 3 when we went over. And then my middle son, Noah, he was 3 months old.
So the older boy be speaking German by the time you're leaving there?
Yeah, well, 5 years. Yeah, he was going to a German school. He was speaking German. It's funny. We just watched some like videos of him back in the day, and I thought he was fine. But now when I'm looking back, I'm like, he looks kind of like, am I sure here what's going on? And I was like, oh boy, like it made me feel really bad about the situation we put him in. But in the end, they're kids. They're
Well,
adaptable. But
they adapt, and there's lots of kids that go over there, and I mean, they can adapt to a lot of different things because they lived like that, right?
exactly. And I think it was probably the best thing I ever did was going to Ingolstadt. It was the first time where I felt I had stability, really loved the city. My first year there,
Loved hockey too, probably.
I did. I loved hockey, but unfortunately I had the injury bug hit me there too. I blew my knee out twice.
Ugh.
And coming back from those things is tough, but as far as like teammates and just lifestyle thing, it was the best place. And I just think you get guys that are either they're there because they want to be there and that's what they've decided to do, or they're at their end of their careers like me saying, okay, I want this to go as long as I can, and this is a place that I can do that. And you just really embrace the lifestyle.
I really embraced lifestyle in Germany. It was weird come the end. I was there 6 years, and by the end, it was like you're flying back. The first time you fly over, you're like, what the hell am I getting into? But then when you're flying back for your second, your third, your fourth, fifth year, you know where you're going, you know the people, you know who's picking you up at the airport, you know where your apartment is, and it all of a sudden starts almost feeling like home.
Yeah, I found the funniest thing is, you first get over there, you miss a lot of things from Canada, right? Like it's
Yeah.
food, restaurants, things you do. Then all of a sudden you come home and you're like, damn, I miss what we had in Ingolstadt. And
Yeah.
so it's real kind of a confusing, but it does show like how much it is a second home and stuff. And that's how I feel about Ingolstadt. Like I would love to bring the kids back there one day
I
just to go
understand.
and show them the whole experience because it was such a big part of our life. But I think what also makes such a big part of your life is the unbelievable teammates. Like, I can go back and we got Ian Gordon, who came from Frankfurt, just a legend, Rick Gerard, Jeff Likens, Tim Hambley, Motzko. We had this Czech defenseman who'd been in Ingolstadt forever. His name's Jake Fissinek, and he had this hammer of a slap shot. He was just a beauty. He liked his pops and he'd be a little aggressive at times, but in the end, he was a great teammate and such a beauty. I could list like names
I
for
know.
the
I
next
know.
hour, but it's all about the good people you play with and what makes it such a great experience.
That's what makes hockey hockey, and that's is how I do this. Is I mean, there's still tons of guys from my career that I haven't found out where they are, haven't reached out, because I just kind of follow the trail as it takes me.
Yeah,
And I mean, it is the great teammates you play with and what they're willing to do for you and the team that you never forget what some guys will do, you know?
100%.
They go play with broken feet or hands, and you're like, hey, you're gonna do that tonight, eh?
Yeah. Well, speaking of injury, like here in Kelowna, I've become really good friends with Shea Weber.
Yeah.
And that guy, the amount of pain he has played with and what he's done in his career is crazy. Like we live fairly close to each other. And do you remember Carlson? He had that ankle injury,
Yeah. The
and
Achilles.
it was the Achilles, and it was terrible. Well, Shea had the same thing, and he played with it for like 3 months until finally he couldn't. And then he has this
Oh,
knee issue. We're like, oh, we'll just scope your knee out. He was out for 6 months because his knee was just totally ramaged. But this guy's got the pain tolerance and the absolute, like, he can get through anything for the team.
he's got the will.
Yeah. And that guy's at the epitome, but you see it all over with hockey guys.
Yeah, you do. And there are animals out there. Like, yeah, Zen and Konopka, I remember showing up in Syracuse my second year when I finally get called up, and he's been traded there from Anaheim for Motzko.
Yeah.
Small world. But he was playing with a full cast on his hand at like all the way up his arm. He was
So now, what
like,
was he like? Because that guy was crazy. Like he would do
uh,
anything. How was he as a teammate?
he, well, I mean, he was most definitely the captain, and there was no doubt about it.
Okay.
Takes over the whole room, and everybody's going to get in line and play as hard as him, or he's going to let you know you're not doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a gamer. And then to see him go out and play with one arm, it was like, you're going to play every game like that the rest of the season, man?
Well, he had a reputation, that's for sure.
Oh, he earned it.
For sure.
Okay, so Ingolstadt, you probably hit a couple beer tents over your time there.
Yeah, well, Ingolstadt's pretty close to Munich, so
Mm,
usually,
I
October
understand.
Fest rolls around, you get to go do that. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, Bavaria, there seems to be a beer tent festival going on every other weekend, so you can never not find a big stein of beer.
And the food at those places. I mean, I don't know how they wanted me to stay in shape around Germany when they're feeding me that type of food, you know?
For sure. Yeah. Again, one of the things you miss, you miss those big beers, you miss the tents, you miss the food, everything.
It's quite the experience you get when you're willing and you get asked to go play overseas. And it's, I mean, you get back to the real world and it's just, the same all the time. And you don't get those experiences that we got as hockey players, and you don't appreciate them while you're doing them. At least I didn't.
No. Well, how many open air rinks did you play in? Like I
A
think
whole lot.
my craziest one was Augsburg. It was like I think the second or third exhibition game my first year, and I'm in the penalty box. It's plus 25 out, and I'm looking around, and all of a sudden, you see the skyline of the city and trees, and I'm like, but I'm playing in a game, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, where am I? It just there's
What is happening?
crazy.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the coolest things in Europe is those open air rinks. And even Augsburg I remember we played there in January and it was freezing. It was a cold snap going through. I think warm-ups, you might have been out there 3 minutes. And then the game time comes. You can tell who's playing, who's not playing by the snow that's on guys' helmets, which is just crazy.
My memory from that is Krimichow. I mean, you're playing the DL, man. Most of your barns are closed up. The second league, not so much. Krimichow, you go there in January. Man, the water bottles froze. You couldn't drink water. You can talk about the flex in your stick. Well, they were all stiff that day. There was no flex.
Crazy. But
It's
that's
so
what an
close.
experience that is, right? Like that's what a
And you
pro
got to
European,
adapt to what you're
yeah.
dealing with.
Guys putting Vaseline on their faces.
Oh, and like now, the kids, they don't learn how to adapt. It's like now they got skates, you lose an edge, you just take the steel out and put the new steel in. And I'm like, if I lost my edge in a game, I had to learn how to not turn right the rest of the game.
Exactly. You got to adapt. That's hockey.
Yeah, it is hockey. But poster picks then. So in Ingolstadt, a couple of your poster picks I thought were just legendary. The fans have a sign up, all the whole fan section saying champions are remembered forever, and said thank you, Captain Bouck. At that, having them do something like that for you must mean the world. And I do believe champions are remembered forever because it is forever for the teammates, for the fans, for this coaching staff, for everybody involved in winning. It's forever.
Yeah, I've the fans. That was actually I went back for a knee injury for the BG. Like 4 or 5 years after I retired, I wasn't even planning to go back to Ingolstadt, but I have a friend that was there, so I took the train from Berlin, went and saw him, and they didn't even know I was coming to the game till like the day of the game, and then the fans had that banner made and stuff. So it was pretty awesome, and it just
That was
showed.
4 or 5 years later, and they didn't even know you were coming until the day of,
Correct.
and they did that for you. That's
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, it was awesome. I really enjoyed playing in Ingolstadt. Those fan sections are what makes German hockey. I'm sure
Oh,
whatever your home city is, their fans that's what makes it. It's something that most North Americans would have no idea about, and they go over and be like, "Wow, that was an experience," because it is so different to see a game like that.
but it's the fan sections there are, you can't explain it until you see it and live it. Going to Landshut, you're new in Germany, you don't know what the hell you're getting into. Um, my first game at home is my second game there. First one was in Kassel, second one's in Landshut, and I think I just had a couple of assists, but then there was a couple scrums, and I got involved and wrestled around and pulled people off my teammates' backs and stuff. And then at the end of the game, the fans all started chanting my name when we were going off the ice. And I didn't know what that meant. I was like,
Yeah.
that's pretty neat. And my line mate's like, you got to go back out. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, you have to go back out. And he's like,
And
oh, and he had scored the 2 goals I had assisted on. He goes, I'm coming with you. And then we went out to center ice and they're chanting and doing all the stuff. And then all of a sudden we started doing like the can together, kicking our feet up in the air. And the fans are going crazy. Like they're basically saying, we embrace you as our new import and we're happy you're here. And it meant the world to me. And it was that first home game in Landshut. I'll never forget that moment.
yeah, it's crazy. They can turn out as well when you're not doing well. They can let you know,
Oh,
but
they sure can.
but you sure appreciate when you're playing well and they're supporting you. And I'd say like overall, they were great fans. And when we were, we won the championship and it was a big deal to them because it's the first time it happened, and even just the progression of how we won it. So I do think it was
And
pretty
you're playing
memorable.
defense.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
And then the next poster pic is just like that one, but it has your whole portrait holding the trophy, and it's like the whole fan section is a big picture of you holding the trophy. When was that?
So that would have been the first game the next season. So I wasn't even there. I was
Really?
already at home, and that was, and one of the fans or our friends in Ingolstadt sent that to my wife and just said, "Hey, look at this. Look at what's going on."
No
So
kidding. And you
yeah,
weren't even there.
I wasn't there. No.
That, and you say you left loving hockey. Getting sent that the start of next season would probably make you want to coach minor hockey right away because you love hockey.
Yeah, I love hockey. What also has been really great for me since retiring from hockey is we've got a group of guys. There are so many ex-pros that live in the city that I live in, and we all play together every Thursday night. So like I've got what is there? There's Wade Redden, there's Brent Seabrook, there's Renee Bork, Jordan Tutu, Corey Cross, Todd Simpson, Mike Ridley. Do you remember that name, Mike
Yeah,
Ridley?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, he was a Leaf
well, I think he was a Washington Capital. He might have been a Leaf briefly, but
briefly.
Washington is where he was
One of
there.
their
But
playoff runs, he was on the Leafs because I was a Leaf guy until they didn't
okay.
sign me.
But this guy's 60 years old, and we've got this really good group of guys here. We get together, and what it is more about is we have fun, we play the game, but then we have a big cooler beer after, and we're sitting around chatting and hanging out. And so
Reliving
that's helped my
stories.
yeah, and that's helped my transition out of the game too, right? You have a group like that, you get
Right.
together once a week, do things. It makes things a lot better and easier to get over.
Totally. And I didn't have that. I dabbled in senior hockey around here to have a team and play hockey. I knew I wasn't supposed to with my knee, but it was how I tried to be on a team again and tried to muck it up. But you do
Well,
need.
you have risk with senior hockey getting hurt, where I don't have risk going out with these guys. We're just fun.
Right. I know, and I understand there was risk. There was a lot of risk. I should
Yeah.
talk about infections. We did get to the finals the one year we went on a run there when I was governor, and I went septic in the finals. I missed the last game when it ended. And I had to wear an IV in my arm for 16 days and go to work. And it was a grind there because there was a week where they couldn't figure out what was wrong and they weren't treating it right. And then a doctor finally figured it out. He's like, "Man, you're dying." I'm like, "Well, I feel like I am." And then they kept the IV in my arm for 16 days, and I'd have the bag dripping at work. And I'm like, "Well, I'm not taking a sick day because I'm an idiot and played senior."
That's crazy. You're lucky because that's very scary.
It was the most pain I've ever been, and I would just be laying in bed with my arm up in the air because it was my elbow, and
Okay.
it was crazy, crazy amount of pain. But infections are scary.
Yeah, I had the same in Manitoba. I had no idea what was going on, and I was the same thing in the hospital where they thought I might not make it, and I had a PICC line going through my heart, and I basically sat there with my fanny pack of medicine for a month, lost like 20 pounds, and that was kind of it for that year.
Oh yeah, it's hard to come back from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. Do I have any other pictures? Yeah, the Adam Graves. The picture of you. So after you win the championship, you know your career's over. You're done with hockey. You have that picture with the trophy and your 2 boys, eh?
That was awesome. I like, I wish I could go back to when we won because like as I told you, like I was so like the karma gods. I didn't want to expect anything. Like the team manager said, "Hey, you've got to go at the end of the handshake line. You get the trophy." I was like, "Okay." Where I remember one of the young Germans like, "Well, what do we do when you get the trophy?" I'm like, well, I don't know. Like I haven't planned anything in my head about what I want to do. I just want to get this trophy and like here you go.
Yeah.
But as we're celebrating, Patrick Kopchen, who's one of our older Germans, he was actually the playoff MVP. Awesome guy, hilarious guy. He's a legend in Germany. All of a sudden, I look over and he's in the stands and people are handing my kids over the glass to him so that they can be on the ice with me. And
That's a teammate taking care of you, eh?
that was awesome. But then part of it, now I've got a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and it's all this chaos. So now I'm kind of like, I just don't want them to fall or get hurt. But the pictures are great. And even when I get handed the trophy and I hoist it up, my two boys are right beside me, and they've got
That's
my jerseys
incredible.
on. And so, like to me, that is a picture that it'll be a keepsake for the rest of my life.
I totally agree. And yeah, it's weird. Like, everybody's got different stories. It's like I won in Denmark, and that was after I didn't have anything in Germany anymore. So I switched to Denmark. We win the championship. I have a year. And then I got that moment with my son on the ice, and he was 2 years old. He's in the team photo with the trophy, saying we're the Denmark Meisters, and I was back to winning again. And I have pictures of him trying to pick up the giant champagne bottles on the ice and drink them, and all the fun photos you have. And then, they didn't want me. The exit meeting, they say they're not offering me again. And then my whole taste towards that team changes for years and years and years and years and
Yeah.
years. And then all of a sudden, that moment didn't feel the same for me as
Yeah.
winning and ending it properly with the team.
That'd be hard. Yeah, I think that would be very hard. And if I wanted to continue playing and Ingolstadt didn't want me back, I'm sure I would have felt the same way. But luckily, I was done, so I didn't have to worry about that.
And it's interesting when I talk around in my shed to the guys that are still playing and going through the ups and downs of a pro career. Um, I can talk to them at one point and they just love the place and they love the team and the city and the fans and everything. And then there can be losses or injuries or a coach change. And then all of a sudden it's all changed. And then it's interesting watching it all play out, and like I'm still part of the game watching this from the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how hockey is like it. I don't think the most people recognize the pressure that individual players put on themselves because you got to compete every day to earn your ice. And then, you need a break. Maybe there's an injury, so I can get in the lineup here or get a spot there. And it's really hard. And I think when I've been gone from the game, I forget the highs and lows of it. But now that I'm seeing my son go through it and he's riding the highs and lows, it's coming back, and you're like, oh yeah, that's not fun.
No, you gotta stay steady.
And you got to be able to enjoy things away from the rink, or if you're not playing, the guys go out, you make sure you're part of it. Like you just want to make sure you don't want to isolate yourself, because that's where you go down a different dark hole. You
Yep.
got to be a part of the group. You got to keep things going together to keep that your mind right.
Yeah, and that's whether you're injured or just being a healthy scratch, you got to be a part of it to get back into it.
100%.
Mm. Seems like we got a lot of the same opinions about this game.
I think most hockey guys do at the end of the day there.
That's true. Well, it's been great getting to know you today, and it's fun meeting a fella that played with a bunch of legends and playing on the World Juniors of Canada and everything you did. Pretty neat. But then you go back and coach minor hockey for all these years and be a part of it. And yeah, I can just picture how your teams have played over the years, and it would be exactly how I'd want my team to play.
Yeah, it's probably how your team does play.
I like my team.
Well, I thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It was fun doing this, and I'm gonna keep watching to see the rest of the guys, because I think you're always gonna have guys that we cross pathways coming on, and that's how we connected. So thanks
It's
for
really
asking.
fun. Yeah, no, and that's why I asked, because when I saw who follows you, I'm like, those are all my guys. I'm like, those are some of my favorites, and they're all following him. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's got to be one of them. And sure enough, when Dicko writes, "Oh, he's awesome," I'm like, ah, nailed it again.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, and nice getting to know you and making my day better. And this has been another episode of Zero Ales and Hockey Tales with Bouck and Wally.